The blizzard had teeth. It tore at Leo's parka with frozen jaws, blinding him with a swirling white madness. His snowmobile had died an hour back, a silent metallic corpse sinking into the deepening drift. He was lost in the vast, indifferent expanse of the Alaskan interior, and the cold was no longer a temperature. It was a presence seeping into his marrow, whispering a lullaby of final sleep. Just as the numbness began to feel like peace, he saw the cabin. It was a squat, dark shape against the endless white, a promise of stillness. Hope, a dangerous flame, flickered in his chest. He stumbled towards it, his legs heavy as stone. As he neared the porch, a movement in the swirling snow caught his eye. At the tree line just 10 yards from the cabin's door stood 3 wolves. They were enormous, their fur the color of the storm itself, dusted with ice. They were not pacing, were not snarling. They were perfectly still, statues of frost and muscle, their amber eyes fixed not on him, but on the cabin's heavy oak door. As Leo watched, the lead wolf, a majestic beast with a mantle of silver-tipped fur, did something impossible. It lowered its great head, not in a threat display, but in a gesture of profound animal supplication. Its ice-encrusted whiskers brushed the snow. Then it took a single, deliberate step forward, placed a massive paw on the bottom step of the porch, and let out a sound. It was not a howl. It was a low, guttural whine, a vibration of pure, desperate need that cut through the wind's scream. It looked directly at Leo, and in those ancient, intelligent eyes, Leo saw not predation, but a plea. Open the door. The other 2 wolves mirrored the gesture, a silent chorus of frozen beggars. They were not guarding the cabin. They were yearning for it. Every instinct screamed at Leo to flee, to find another way, to freeze to death anywhere but near these titans of the north. But the lead wolf's whine echoed the very emptiness in his own soul. He was a man fleeing a different kind of cold, the chill of a divorce finalized, a city apartment that echoed with silence, a life that had lost its purpose. He recognized longing when he saw it, even in the eyes of a wolf. Trembling from more than the cold, he turned his back on the pack and climbed the porch steps. The door was unlocked. He pushed it open, the groan of its hinges swallowed by the storm's voice, and stumbled into warmth. The shock was immediate and total. It was not the warmth of a fire, though a massive stone hearth roared at the far end of the room. It was the warmth of presence. The cabin was not empty. It was full of time. A man sat in a worn leather chair by the fire, his back to the door. He was whittling a piece of wood, the shavings curling like pale feathers to the hearthstone rug. An old woman hummed softly in a rocking chair, knitting something impossibly long and gray. A boy, perhaps 7, played with carved wooden animals on the braided rug. The air smelled of pine sap, stew, and wool drying by the heat, but they were not solid. They were like figures seen through clear, still water, there yet wavering. They were memories given form, glowing with the soft gold light of the fire that cast no shadow. The man by the fire stopped whittling. He did not turn. "Close the door, son," he said, his voice a dry, kindly rustled like autumn leaves. "You're letting the past in." Leo shoved the door shut, leaning against it, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He was hallucinating. The cold, the exhaustion, had finally stolen his mind. "You're not mad," the old woman said, her needles clicking a gentle rhythm. "You're just at the crossing." The boy looked up from his wolves and bears. His eyes were a startling, clear blue. "They're waiting," he said, nodding toward the door. "May always wait. Who are you?" Leo managed to whisper, the words scraping his throat. The man in the chair finally set down his knife and wood. He turned. His face was leathered and kind, etched with lines of sun and wind, but his eyes held the same ancient, knowing light as the wolves outside. "I am the keeper of this story," he said. "And this is the night it wants to be told again." He gestured to the empty chair opposite him. Numb, Leo stumbled forward and sat. The chair felt real, solid. "This was my home," the man began, his gaze drifting to the fire. "My wife, Alara," the old woman smiled, her spectral form glowing. "My grandson, Finn." The boy waved a little wooden wolf. "We lived with the silence, and it was a good silence. And with the wolves, not as pets, but as neighbors, we respected their song. They respected our fences." His voice grew heavy, sinking into the narrative like a stone into deep water. "One winter, fiercer than this, A pack came down from the high ridges. Starving, desperate, they attacked the stock. I did what any man would do to protect his family and his livelihood. I took my rifle. I went out into the storm. A tear, glistening and real, traced a path through the ghostly stubble on the man's cheek. I was a good shot, too good. I didn't just drive them off. In my fear, in my need to make a point, I culled them, killed the alpha. His mate, 2 of their yearlings. I left their bodies in the snow as a warning. The fire crackled. The old woman's humming had stopped. The boy held his wooden wolf tightly. I came back inside, the man whispered. I was a hero to my family. But the silence that fell after, it was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was listening. The next night, the remainder of the pack came, not for the sheep. For me, he looked directly at Leo, and in his eyes, Leo saw the reflection of the blizzard. They surrounded the cabin. They didn't attack the walls. They just waited. They cried, a sound I'd never heard. Not a howl, but a weeping. It went on for 3 nights. On the 3rd night, the cold came inside. He gestured around the cabin. The fire wouldn't light. The warmth left the logs. We froze, not from the storm outside, but from the one they brought with them, a cold of grief, of justice. We died here in this room, listening to the wolves sing our souls out of our bodies. Leo's blood turned to ice that had nothing to do with the storm. He was sitting in a tomb. But stories don't end, the boy Finn said, his small voice solemn. They get stuck. The man nodded. The wolves' grief was so strong, their need for not revenge but acknowledgement. It trapped us all. They cannot leave this grove, and we cannot leave this moment. Every storm like this one, the memory stirs. They come to the door, not to enter, but to ask someone to come in, to hear, to witness what was done. Leo understood now. The wolves outside weren't begging for shelter, they were begging for a witness. They had used the last of their will to guide a lost soul to their prison, to break the loop of their endless frozen sorrow. Why me? Leo asked, his own voice thick with tears he hadn't known he was crying. He cried for the wolves, for this family, for his own lonely, self-imposed exile. The old woman Alara smiled sadly. Because you are also lost. The lost can truly find each other. The man leaned forward. You have a choice. You can stay until the storm passes. The memory will fade. You'll leave and this will all be a strange dream. Or you can open the door. You can let them see you've heard their story. To go back out, there was madness. But to leave this story unfinished, to leave these creatures in their eternal pleading vigil, felt like a deeper sin. With legs of lead, Leo stood. He walked to the door. The spectral family watched him, their forms beginning to fade, their purpose nearing its end. He opened the door. The 3 wolves were still there, now barely visible in the white fury. The lead wolf lifted its head. Its amber eyes met Leo's. Leo did not look away. He let the tears on his face freeze, a testament he offered to the storm. He nodded. And the wolf nodded back. Then, it threw back its magnificent head and howled. But this was not the weeping cry. It was a clear, clean release, a note of truth finally set free. The other wolves joined, their voices weaving into a song that momentarily dominated the wind. It was a song of ending, of forgiveness. As the last note faded, the wolves turned as one. They paced not into the woods, but simply dissipated. Their forms blew apart like dandelion seeds on the wind, becoming one with the swirling snow, finally at peace. Leo turned back to the cabin. It was dark, empty, just a cold, abandoned shack. The fire was dead ash. The chairs were dust-covered and broken, so the only sound was the sighing of the wind through a cracked window. He sank to his knees on the bare floor, weeping openly, great heaving sobs for the tragedy he had witnessed and for the hollow in himself it echoed. The storm would pass. He would be found. But he knew, as he sat in the silence that was no longer listening, that he would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of the story the frozen wolves had begged him to hear. He was no longer just a lost man. He was a keeper, too.